Hi everyone, and welcome to Drive, your source for automotive reviews, analysis, maintenance, and restorations. Please subscribe to our channel, watch the entire video, watch our other videos, and of course, click on notifications to be first to learn about new videos. I'm Chris Capredoni, and in this how-to video, I will leather wrap an old shift knob and take you along for the entire process. I have always wanted to work with leather and customize a vehicle's interior. Improving upon an old beat-up shift knob seemed to be the logical starting place. I found a great piece of leather online and gathered all the simple tools and supplies I needed in order to do the job. Let's get started. With your typical E46 manual transmission, you're supposed to be able to pull up and off the knob. But in this case, this aftermarket knob, which is in pretty bad shape, will not release no matter how much leverage I apply. So in order not to do any damage, what I've decided to do is come into the cockpit and tape the entire surface of the shift knob so that I have a template in order to use to cut the leather. So the next step for me would be to start using a pen to circle out where I want to create my cuts with a razor blade and lift off. There's going to be 5 pieces of tape for the template so that I can lift them off and transfer them down onto a piece of leather so that I can cut the leather in order to sew it, and then come back to the vehicle to do the stitching up of one side inside the vehicle. So the next step here is I've drawn out the areas where I want to cut the masking tape off in order to form my template. So you can see I've made a circle around the top dome. I want that to be one piece, and then I've drawn a line down the side and one on the opposite side to cut off the entire shaft part, which won't be in 2 parts, it will be in 4 parts. I'll split the 2 halves into quarters after, when I have it flat on a piece of paper. So the next step now is for me to get an X-Acto knife or a blade and start carefully cutting it off so that I can transfer it down onto a piece of paper. Upon analyzing what I was doing, I actually changed the pattern a little bit to make it easier for the leather. If I had such a large dome, the leather would not lay properly and there'd be wrinkles and kinks in it. So instead of having it separate there, I'm going to have it separate right here and then just do the shaft sides going from here all the way down in 4 quarters. That way I'll be able to sew it where it'll fit more like a glove and not look like it's not fitting properly. After taping up the entire surface area of the shift knob, I cut it into quarters and removed it, including the top circle, which is the top part of the shift knob. And that's what you see on the very left. The one next to it is me refining the shape because I need a very nice, crisp template in order to cut the leather from. Then next to it, I have my paper template. And then finally, I have 2 that I've taped together to make sure that the shape looks exactly the same as what the exterior shape of the shift knob is. Now my next step is to take my paper template and transfer the shape over to the leather and start cutting it out so that I can start prepping all 4 side pieces and the top circle to be sewn together in order to create the new cover for the shift manual. So I'll start getting set up with the leather, and I'll move to that step. The necessary tools and supplies are pictured here. Most are ordinary household items, except for the leather piece and possibly the heavier duty needles, which can be purchased online or in a department store's sewing or craft section. Other tools that I found necessary were a micrometer to accurately measure the diameter of each section of the shift knob. I also needed some pliers to assist in pulling the needle through the leather since it was thick. So here I am cutting the 4 sides of the shift knob using my paper template. I'm working on the 3rd. You can see that I'm alternating the pattern to minimize the amount of leather that I use, the wastage. So I have 3 more to cut out, and then I'll cut out the circle top. Then the next step will be for me to lay it out for sewing it together. And I'm going to use a white thread because I'd like to see the red and white contrast with the shift knob. I've completed cutting all 4 sides, including the top. So the next step is for me to start prepping it to do the sewing, and I'll sew one side to the next, to the next, to the next, and then I'll sew the top. And this is the thread I'm going to be using. So like I mentioned earlier, it's going to be a white and red contrast, which I think will look very attractive in the cockpit. In order to ensure that my hole spacing was consistent, I decided to make a paper template with 4mm spacing between each hole. In my opinion, anything smaller or larger just does not look aesthetically pleasing. Next, I took a quality pen and mapped out the hole distances around each leather panel. Make sure not to make the holes too close to the outer edge, as they may rip when you start applying pressure when you tighten the thread. Take your owl or fine hole punch and start creating the holes where the needle will be passing through the leather. Make sure you have something under the leather to ensure the end of the owl does not damage your table or work area. When preparing to sew 2 panels together, ensure that the holes line up for proper fitting. Take the panel with the holes and line them up to the next panel. Either mark with a pen and then hole punch, or if you feel confident, line up the holes and hole punch without any markings. So I've decided to go with a corset stitch because I like the design. I think it complements showing off the white thread with the red leather, but you could go with any sort of other stitch, a saddle stitch, a box stitch, whatever you like. Go online and research the styles that are available and what you like to do and what you'd like to see. So I've already got one section done. I'm working on the second section. Then I need to do a third one, then install the top, and then I need to do the last section on the actual knob in the car. So I'm just doing a process of doing a cross stitch back and forth. And I decided to use a small pair of pliers because the leather is thick and requires a little bit of a tug to get it through. So I'm just taking my time and going back and forth all the way down. As I finish off a side, I've just finished this side off. From the inside, I've cut the needles off. What I need to do is I need to tie a knot there and then burn the thread into place so that it doesn't come apart or de-thread. So. So there's 2 sides. I'm going to start with the next one. The first step in beginning to sew 2 panels together is to start at the top and do a double loop at the top to lock the 2 into place before you start doing the crisscross sewing. So what you do is you grab one panel Insert the needle. Pull it through. Then you grab the other panel, back to back. Insert it through the other one. Pulling your thread to be equal on both sides. Then you take the original needle that you put through once and you put it through again. And then through the second panel again. Then the next step is to start doing the crisscross sewing all the way down to the bottom. So at this point, I've finished all of the side stitching, 3 sides, excluding one, and did the top circle. Now, for this one here, I need to be able to put it on the shift knob and then sew it up so I can sew it to tightness. So this next one will be done on the shift knob, which is currently in the vehicle. So that's the next step for me. So I've completed the entire shift knob cover except for this last vertical seam, which needs to be done obviously inside the car while it's installed on the shift knob. So I've already set up the first row, and it's just the same as the other corset stitch, where I go from the right side to the next hole down on the left side and then parallel back to the right side and continue that process. And then doing the cross stitch, I just do the exact opposite, where I go from the left side down to the next hole on the right side and then parallel back to the left side and continue that crisscross action. So I'll get started with the right side. So again, make sure you keep both threads away from each other because you can very easily tangle. Well, so far I've made it about halfway down. As you can see, it's still the same sort of pattern, crisscross, with 2 needles on both ends of the thread, doing the corset design all the way down to the bottom. Now I'm finding it to be a lot more difficult with each stitch because I'm losing all my tolerances. I can't flex the leather very much anymore. I can't bend it. It's harder now to keep the stitch tight while providing enough play for me to keep moving the needle back and forth. But, you know, I am making some progress and I'll just keep going. Again, this is not a fast process. Probably to do the last half is probably going to take me well over half an hour to do it meticulously and to make sure that I maintain the pattern and don't mess up. But I'll show you once I reach the bottom what I do. Finally reached the bottom. So the next step for me now is to cut the 2 pieces of thread to remove the needles. And what I need to do is tie a fine knot down there and then use my lighter to burn the ends or melt the ends of the thread so that they don't fray or come apart. So I'll grab my scissors, cut the thread so I have enough room to tie a double knot, and that should be the end of it. I removed the needles and tied a fine knot right at the very bottom. I don't know if you can see it. And then I trimmed the excess. The last step for me is just to flame it to make sure that it doesn't fray at any point and start coming apart, which I highly doubt, but I'd rather be thorough than not. Okay, I saw it melt a little bit, so it's probably sealed in place. So that's the complete job. That's how you create your own custom leather shift knob cover to kind of dress up your interior. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks everyone for watching this informative DIY tutorial on how to create a leather shift knob cover to customize your vehicle's interior. All that is required are simple tools, a quality piece of leather, and a couple of hours of your time to complete the process. This process can be used for manual shift knobs, automatic transmission handles, parking brake handles, steering wheels, or even door handles. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and select the notification option. Drive, your source for automotive reviews, analysis, maintenance, and restorations.